K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com. The leader in talk radio on the internet, right here on K98talk.com.
We will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period.
This is the most transparent administration in history. There's not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Don't expect us to admit a mistake. We're paying off election debts to those who will take. Attorney General's lying even while
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. You're listening to America Off the Rails with your host, Rick Robinson.
All right, folks, well, happy Friday evening. We've made it through another week yet again. I know for some of us it was a short week, but I don't know about you. A coworker said this to me earlier, and I didn't really let it sink in, but it was the longest short week ever. It just really seemed like the last 4 days took forever. But give yourself a pat on the back. You've made it through yet another weekend, or made it through yet another work week. For those of you who work Monday through Friday, for those of you who don't, I'm sorry. Hopefully your days off are coming soon. I can relate. I've been there. Technically, even though I don't work the day job tomorrow, I'll be doing this half of the day. So I completely understand. Now, something that we play a lot, and I just want to make you understand that it's not something that we are joking around about. We keep playing a commercial that's about advertising with us that keeps saying over and over again, we are expanding our lineup for 2015. We just made a groundbreaking announcement here at K98 Talk, folks, and even though as of right now I am the host of America Off the Rails, I'm also the programming director, so I'd like to take a second just to give everybody involved a great big round of applause, and like to give a very special welcome to Red Nation Rising Radio, who will be joining us now here every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on your home for what is becoming the best talk radio network in the world, in my humble opinion, K98talk.com. So I want to give a big round of applause to those folks. Thank you very much. It's humbling because at this point it seems like we're growing faster than I know what to do. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm saying that because of all of you. If it wasn't for the listeners, those of you who tune in every day, and those of you who give us feedback, we wouldn't be doing the things that we're doing. So I want each and every one of you that are listening right now, or even listening in a podcast later, or maybe listening through one of our other affiliates, just give yourself a pat on the back, because it's because of you that we do the things that we do, and it's because we are truly hoping that if we build a large enough platform, we can use some of us. In my case, I still consider myself to have a really tiny voice, but I'm hoping with a big enough platform, I can get a big enough megaphone that maybe I can make a difference. But regardless, it's because of each and every one of you that we do what we do here. Some of us do it in our spare time, some of us do it with a lot of our spare time, and it's because we honestly want to find a way to make a difference. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you that tune in every day, that tune in with us week over week, that follow us on Facebook, that keep up on Twitter, that hang out in the chat room. Yes, I'm a bad show host again. I am again not in the chat room. I promise I will find a way to multitask this stuff well enough to get that figured out soon. But for right now, I'd rather talk to you this way. So I hope you don't take it personally that I don't usually hang out in the chat room. Mainly, it's honestly because if I'm trying to keep up with what you're saying in there, I might miss something important in here that I kind of need to keep up with. Now, that being said, I think I've patted the station on the back long enough, and so at this point, I think we need to go ahead and get moving on with the topics of the day. Now, this will be one of the final episodes where we kind of do a recap of Southern Republican Leadership Conference 2015. Some of the stuff I've allowed the other hosts that were more involved in it with, especially Grouchy, to play it really before I've done any type of commenting on it. One of them that I was going to play, the audio quality, I just couldn't clean it up enough, so I'm going to reserve the right to play that one again at another time. But we will go over the Ambassador Bolton interview a little bit later and actually kind of give you my 2 cents on that one. Also going to recap a couple of the other big announcements and things that happened at SRLC 2015. But one of the things, or two of the things that I just want to kind of touch on that are going on in social media news right now. There's this big announcement that a certain soda company that shall remain nameless, because, you know, I am somebody who at some point is looking for sponsors. I don't want to wind up irritating somebody that may eventually want me to advertise with them. But there is a certain soda company that has made the announcement that they have done completely away with aspartame. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking the same thing I was thinking when I first read it. Hey, that's great. You know, aspartame's been noted to cause all kinds of problems. You know, issues with actually causing weight gain, issues with causing indigestion problems. It's been known to cause neurological disorders. I mean, and you know, this is from a wide variety of a bunch of different folks that have paid the money to do to do the testing. Pardon me a moment. To do the testing. But anyway, so that being said, one of the things I've always tried to do is tried to go back through and look through and trace the money back and see who it is that's actually paying for the studies. Because one of the things you'll find nowadays is studies, not only are they not cheap, they're typically rigged to give the results that whoever's paying for them wants. But if you look at enough of them, you're still going to find some correlations. And why do I say all this? Well, let me tell you why I say all this. Because, you know, there's this big announcement again that this certain soda company is no longer using aspartame, otherwise known as NutraSweet. But what they are using is even worse. It is it's uncommonly referred to as sucralose. You would, however, know it under a different name. Splenda. Now, Splenda sounds great, right? Because they tell you, you know, it's natural, it's made from sugar. Sounds really great on the surface of it, till you look into what it actually is. Tell me how this sounds good for you. Splenda, otherwise known as sucralose, is simply a version of chlorinated sugar. You know, the same things that, you know, they put in small amounts in drinking water to keep it clean, large amounts in bleach to keep your clothes clean. Somehow it's good for you to ingest chlorine. Does anybody ever stop and think about what happens with the way chlorine interacts with other things? I mean, seriously. I mean, even my father, who some of you who listen know, has been diabetic for nearly as long as I've been alive. He was diagnosed, I think it was around the time I was 6 or 7. But anyway, so that being said, even his diabetic doctor, about 5 or 6 years ago, finally just told him, look, if you're going to insist on drinking soda, then drink it in moderation and drink the stuff that doesn't have the artificial sweeteners in it. Because the regular sugared stuff is healthier for you than the crap with the artificial sweeteners in it. I mean, I'm not telling you to take my word for it. Do your own research. Do what I've done, because I'm a fat guy. I was one of these guys that used to go around looking for anything I could drink that had 0 calories. And then I started looking into the things and realizing that half the time when I drank them, I felt even worse than I did before. So I started doing some research. And that's when I found the things out about aspartame. And that's when I started yelling at my dad about aspartame. And then about 10 years later, his doctor joined suit, and now he's finally listening to somebody. But that being said, here's the problem. Aspartame became famously an issue because enough people started doing enough digging that they started making noise about it. So now they have found yet another artificial sweetener that is at least partially based in an actual natural sweetener, and then they screw with it. Now, I have another friend who shall remain nameless who uses stevia. I have not looked into that one yet. I think I might, just to find out if it's what I think it is, because I think it may be another version of this stuff. And if it is, it's not good for you. Think about how many of you drink. I know a guy from work that I used to work with drinks a 12-pack of soda a day. Imagine 144 ounces of liquid, where a good percentage of that is chlorinated sugar. How can that possibly be healthy for you? What type of benefits or risks are we dealing with now with this? And nobody knows because we don't know enough about it yet. So I'm going to say to you the same thing that my dad's doctor said to him. If you're going to drink soda, drink it in moderation. Drink the stuff with the sugar in it, and honestly, if you can find it, drink the stuff with the actual cane sugar in it. They still make them. Honestly, and like I said, we don't have any soda sponsors, but I have to give a shout out in one respect to this particular company, because from work I found, because we sell sodas there as part of a committee to raise funds for the holiday dinners and things like that. Well, they have a Pepsi product, which is actual Pepsi, that has the actual real cane sugar in it. I'm not even that much of a fan of Pepsi, but man, I bought one of those the other day just to see what the difference was. And I was like, man, I think I'm going to start finding just the sodas that have nothing but the all-natural cane sugar in them, because they taste so much better. And I didn't get the weird phlegmy feeling you get in the back of your throat when you drink something that has the corn syrup in it. So I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm getting old enough now that I'm crotchety, who the hell knows. All I know is, if you're gonna drink soda, stay away from the crap with the artificial sweeteners in it. You're slowly killing yourself, even though you think you're trying to be more healthy. Now, as if that story didn't make you feel like your world was screwed up enough, there's another story that I found that we'll be talking about here in just a second. But first, I think we're gonna break up me talking a little bit with one of the interviews. So, what we're about to play is an interview from Southern Republican Leadership Conference 2015. It was an interview with a gentleman who basically, and he'll give you his story here as well, so I may not give you too much of it, but it's a gentleman who founded Less Government, More Fun. If you're not following them on Twitter yet, you need to do it now. If you haven't found them on Facebook, you need to do that too. It's a really cool group, and if you are, just like me, a like-minded individual who thinks that less government is a good thing, you should probably find a way to support him. Now, I'll let him give you his backstory here, but here's the interview in its entirety, and this was from this past weekend Southern Republican Leadership Conference right here in Oklahoma City. All right, so this is Rick Robinson coming to you live from the Southern Republican Leadership Conference 2015. Again, joined by G, the guy who made the road trip to come hang out with me for this political fest of love we like to call Southern Republican Leadership. We are joined today by a member of Less Government, More Fun, who is sitting across the table from us right now.
This is the man. This is Buddy. Buddy
Hey guys.
Bell, right?
Buddy Belk, yep.
Buddy Belk with Less Government, More Fun. Buddy, I have followed you on Twitter for months now, and it is great to put a face with the account.
Thank you. Likewise.
People, if you do not follow Less Gov, More Fun on Twitter, you're spinning your wheels and wasting your time. Get out there and follow this guy. Lots and lots of brilliance coming off this account.
Well, you're far too kind. I guess that $100 bill did some good here for me.
Dinner.
Wait, he got paid?
Oh, excuse me. I didn't mean that.
So, buddy, tell us what got your group started.
Sure. Well, 3 years ago this September, I left a company I'd been working at for 31 years, and I did that because about this time of year, 3 years ago, I was so mad about what was going on in politics and how big this government had continued to grow prior to that, I had not really been involved in politics at all. But I was frustrated beyond belief. I told my family that I'm thinking about a career change, and I started to save money. And September 3 years ago, I left Target Corporation, where I'd been for 31 years, because I had to start my own business, which is where Less Government, More Fun came out of. And my mission, you can find this as well on our website, lessgovmorefun.com, is really just to spread the word of conservatism and what our founding fathers fought and died for 240 some years ago. It's just ridiculous they were going to war over a 2% increase in taxation from England. We go to bed and the next day we get up and there's a 2% hike and we don't even know about it.
Right.
And I'm not a no government guy. We need government. We need it like our founders had intended it to be. But it is so out of whack right now that I just had to do something. So that's the history on it.
Well, buddy, that's commendable. That's real commitment. There's people that are committed. Like I guess you would call it the bacon and egg breakfast. The chicken was committed, but the pig was really committed.
Right.
And you are really committed to turn your back on a 31-year career at a good company that obviously had treated you well, or you wouldn't have been there for 31 years to begin with.
Right.
And to take this on, I definitely stand in awe of that kind of courage.
Well, you guys do the same kind of thing. You're making commitment to things that matter, that are real. And I, not to discredit my former position, loved it. Great company, great people, learned a ton, provided for my family for years. This, however, came up, and I just could not sit any longer. And, prior to that, I had not been involved at all. Historically, I tended to fall more in a conservative voting pattern because that's what I felt. You didn't need government to try to solve problems.
Right.
Not like they try now. And Reagan had all kinds of wisdom he shared about that and how big government was so wrong.
Right. Absolutely. I don't need
English language. I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Those 9 words. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we don't. I guess I don't know what the stopping block is with government thinking that we need them to nanny us.
Right.
We don't need that. What we need is people to take personal responsibility for themselves and their decisions and their actions, and to stand on their own 2 feet and live with whatever life hits them with.
That's right. That's exactly right. I think that's why I'm here, because a number of these guys and gals that are speaking here today and yesterday, they have that same sort of notion we do, that government is not the answer.
Right.
And they're not afraid to admit government's in the way.
Yeah.
Government's too big. Now, honestly, talk is cheap, right? So what I think we all want to see is that after this, it isn't just talking about it. It isn't just saying we're going to do something about it.
Right.
It's actually doing it.
Taking some action.
And I want to hold these candidates accountable.
And we should. We all should.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever it is we're after in the form of less government. We should be holding them accountable for whatever that action is, because I'm sure that everybody out there has something they want the government out of. We may not all agree on what it is,
right?
But there's something that the government needs to be out of.
Absolutely.
And why not?
Yep.
Why not?
And that list long, from Department of Education to enabling.
Department of Energy.
Yes. Yeah, and what a state for that. Here we are, in Oklahoma. Energy is a big deal, and we don't need a Department of Energy to try to tell us what to do and give us more regulations.
Absolutely.
Well, you brought up a good point earlier about how we need people that will basically stand up, take responsibility for their choices, live with what life throws at them. The problem is the government doesn't want people to do that. The government wants people dependent on it because it's become this monster that has to continually find ways to feed itself. And that's the bad thing about government money, government funding. They don't know how not to spend money, and their programs are designed that way on purpose, because if you'll notice, like even around here in this state, you'll see tons of road construction start in November, and it usually is at least started by November, maybe December. And that's because they have to use the money that they got for that year, or whatever agency they got that funding from is going to cut it.
Right.
We should be rewarding people for being able to save money, not penalizing them and rewarding them for spending it instead, which is what the government does. It doesn't. I mean, and sadly, I've noticed in private sector, because I won't mention where my wife works, but she works in a place where they've started the same kind of process in the private sector.
Okay.
They're getting to the point now where if you cut your hours, they continue to make you cut your hours for your employees, or they make you cut staff. And now the place that she works is run on a skeleton crew because they figured out they can do it with a skeleton crew. So they've got like 15 people where they used to have 40 doing the work of the other 5 times the people that used to be there. And it's just...
Now, I don't know what your wife does. For anybody out there listening, Rick and I actually just met in person yesterday for the first time. We've dealt with each other online for months now, but this is our first meeting, so I don't know what your wife does. Is her job by chance in manufacturing?
No, it is not.
Okay. Just curious, because I actually covered that very aspect of manufacturing and what's going on with wages in America on one of my shows previously.
Yeah, well, I think, I guess, the government piece, right? You need government, and the road construction and doing infrastructure things. I think those are smart things to do. What were intended originally, our founders, to take care of us, to protect the American people, to get a border that secures us and protects us.
Absolutely.
It's the excessiveness of it, right?
Yes.
It's the overindulgence and overabundance and the necessity of useless regulations.
And this administration is famous for over-regulating.
Good God.
What is this administration not famous for?
Well, I mean,
other than being able to find, never mind.
They've attached regulations to their regulations, so
Right.
I mean, they're re-regulating their own selves.
Do you realize that with all the laws on the books right now, every average American commits at least 3 felonies a week and has no idea?
No.
It's not surprising, though.
I didn't know that. I'm going to have to stay out of the sight of the authorities, I guess, more than I am. But yes, that's a propensity, I think. And now let's just skip ahead to a year, and if we get someone elected that is a more conservative, patriotic candidate, I think the fact that regulations have been so excessive that the new person is going to be able to look and shine wonderfully based on the changes they can make. That'll be one of the good things that come out of it.
Absolutely.
If you have to find something good.
Yeah, I've definitely I've heard tale of candidates. I haven't heard the actual quote yet, but I heard that Cruz actually had said one of his first things he would do if elected would be to sign an executive order undoing this administration's executive orders.
That's right.
I have not heard that quote, but I was told that he made it.
He did. He did.
Okay.
I saw it during his announcement speech.
Okay.
If anybody wants to look that up on C-SPAN.
Yeah. I mean, that to me, that's a great start.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's kind of like that joke about the million lawyers at the bottom of the ocean. It's a great start.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd actually heard that joke. Oh. The punchline's pretty hilarious.
Yeah. It's simple. It's just like, what do you call a million lawyers at the bottom of the ocean? A great start.
I heard a good one on St. Patrick's Day this year I'd never heard. The fella behind the mic said, I heard a new joke yesterday. An Irish guy walked out of a bar.
As a Scot, I can semi-relate to that.
As someone who's part Irish.
I'm part Irish, too, and I still thought that was funny.
Hey, self-deprecation is my thing. Besides, that's why God invented alcohol. Otherwise, the Irish would rule the world.
That's right.
Pretty good. That's pretty good. So, buddy, while we've got you here and we're going, tell people where we can track you down on all your social media outlets, and let's get some people turned on to you, because your message is something that needs to be broadcast more.
Well, thank you. You referenced the Twitter. That's the @LessGovMoreFun. And I keep all of the monikers the same, so there's consistency. So if you end up going to our website, it's lessgovmorefun.com, and you'll be able to find us on Facebook. There we're facebook.com/lessgovmorefun, as well as other places like Pinterest, Tumblr,
You're everywhere.
Well, we're trying to do it. Like you guys know, it takes time whenever you do anything, so we're just working on it. And any assistance out there, any other supporters that want to keep up to speed on some of the latest government news, as well as hear from direct quotes from our founding fathers, that's really what I do, is a combination of those couple things and keep people in the loop. We also started up a blog, which you'll be able to find on our website. So, yeah, those are all the resources.
Fantastic. Anything else you'd like to add while we're here?
I'm just really glad you guys are here. It's good to meet you. And
it's great to meet you. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I've enjoyed tweeting with you for months now, and
likewise.
I hope that's only going to grow and continue now that we actually know each other.
Right, absolutely, for sure. It's always good to connect with like-minded folks. I know there's a lot of people in your listening audience that must feel that way, or they wouldn't be tuning in. So
they better be. I'm not getting hate tweets, so I mean, and don't get me wrong, folks, I take hate tweets. I don't mind. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. You may not like mine, and I can live with that. I'm a big boy.
Yeah, I hear you. Amen.
All right, well, it was a pleasure meeting you, sir. I do appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us. I don't believe I am actually following you on Twitter yet, but I will rectify that now that I've gotten to know you a little bit more. And also, if you ever want to come on and maybe plan out a little bit longer of an interview, we are always open for that.
Well, thank you.
Just hit us up.
Thank you for that.
We both have our own shows, as well as we've got probably a couple of fistfuls of other show hosts that I'm sure would love to have you on as well.
We'll be happy anytime for anyone to share.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well,
thank you
so much, buddy. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Good to meet you.
All right, folks, so that was the founder of Less Government, More Fun, who hung out with me and Grouchy for about 15 minutes. Actually, that was the interview. He actually was with us quite a bit. The funny thing about that story is, Radio Row has all these tables where all the different folks that get press credentials that do radio broadcasts, they get assigned tables. Well, the funny thing is, Buddy winds up taking over this table because nobody ever bothered to show up for like the whole first day. So he's like, yeah, screw it. I'm going to hang out with you guys for a while. They weren't here yesterday. They're not here today. I'm just going to hijack their table. So, so needless to say, it was NPR. Yeah, the folks that are always screaming about how everything needs to be on equal footing and it's not fair that conservative talk radio gets more airtime than they do, and blah, 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 and whine, yada, 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 bitch, moan, complain some more. Apparently, their hosts are a lot like their listeners. They're either invisible or they don't exist. I'll let you be the judge as to which one it is. Because, we actually took a picture of the fact, or actually, I should say, our PA took a picture of the fact that, there was this big table, and it said NPR on the front of it is completely empty. And she actually tweeted it out to NPR. I said, hey, where are your folks at? Because, she was all like, I actually read NPR. I said, yeah, well, reading NPR is a lot different than trying to listen to NPR. And apparently even they agree because they didn't even try to phone it in. They just weren't there. All right. So, sorry. I know anytime I play that interview, I have to take my shot at NPR. But come on. It's NPR. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, National Public Radio. Good thing. Whatever. I can't even lie. It just sucks. I've tried listening to it. It's like watching paint dry. Ugh. Okay. So anyway, that being said, that was Less Gov, More Fun, the founder of that group. So again, as he said, he's kept all the monikers the same. So if you want to follow him on Twitter, it's pretty easy to find. You want to look up his website, pretty easy to find. You want to follow him on Facebook, just about as easy to find. So I would suggest doing all three. Show him some love. He deserves it. He's working hard out there, just like the rest of us, trying to find a way to make a difference. Okay, so, remember I told you there were a couple more stories I wanted to talk about in between these interviews about how crazy the world has gotten. Well, I found one of them. It wasn't the original one that I was going to bring to you after this one, but I thought this one was a little more higher priority. This is from Rebooting Liberty. It's a site that I've recently been turned on to. Of course, it doesn't hurt that one of the hosts that we have here, I think, is actually a contributor there. But anyway, so basically it's a story about the whole Baltimore issue. And apparently there has been a story that is now broken that Baltimore is planning on rebuilding a lot of the city's damaged areas and everything else using FEMA money. Anybody else see a really huge problem with that? I mean, everybody's talking about, how a certain senator who shall remain nameless in Texas is begging for money now because of the floods when he was against the Katrina. I think it was Katrina. It was either Katrina or the other one. May have actually even been Sandy. I don't remember. But anyway, so everybody's talking about how he's talking out of both sides of his mouth now that it's his state. Okay. See, here's the thing. That's actually a natural disaster. That's what FEMA was designed for. But are they designed to cover the cost of your own populace just being retarded? I mean, can we just be real for a minute here? This isn't like it was a natural disaster. This isn't like it was an act of God. It wasn't something that, you weren't, that you plan for these type of things. Natural disasters are one thing. When someone is willingly and knowingly doing damage to public property and private property, that shouldn't be FEMA's responsibility to fix. It shouldn't be. So let's go into this a little bit. So, right-wing news reported yesterday the city of Baltimore has done a preliminary cost analysis of the recent riots and decided that the damage amounts to some $20 million. And now the city wants to send the bill to FEMA and have all of the rest of us, those of us who aren't in Baltimore and didn't go break shit, they want us to pay their bill. So the city has come up with this estimate and is planning on using discretionary funds for some of the cost, but tucked into the Baltimore Sun story is this. Henry J. Raymond, Baltimore's finance director, said the city can temporarily cover the cost from its rainy day fund while seeking reimbursement for up to 75%. 75% of $20 million. Anybody want to do that math? I'll do it for you real quick. If you really, really want to know, but trust me, you don't want to know. 75% of $20 million is $15 million. So they want $15 million back because the city of Baltimore, by the admission of their own mayor, said we're going to give people room to destroy. And now that we've done that, we want the government's help to pay for it. Are you kidding me? So Henry J. Raymond, Baltimore's finance director, said the city can temporarily cover the cost of its rainy day fund while seeking reimbursement for up to 75% from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. The city remains on strong financial footing, Raymond said. Hopefully, with the FEMA reimbursement, it will reduce the financial stress that we're under in terms of the city's overall revenue structure. We're on firm footing, and we will move forward. Okay, how are you on firm footing? Your city is in ashes. Your police force is afraid to do anything because if they try to do anything, they're going to be called racist. You have national media people telling their American viewers that there's no such thing as a cop that's not white. Because even if they're not white on the outside, they're whitewashed on the inside, baby. These are the things that the media is telling people. And you want to know why your city is in ashes. I have to tell you, having been someone in those type of situations, I would hang it up. That is a cold, hard thing for me to admit, but at this point, I would hang it up. It's not worth it to put your life on the line every day for people that don't give two flips about what happens to you because they don't understand what it's like to be in the position that these people are in. They've never had to deal with having 0.2 of a second to decide if you go home or if the guy that you're dealing with goes home. They've never been there, so they don't understand it. They're a bunch of armchair folks. All of these idiots are. Every single person that's coming out, well, that cop should have done something differently, or why didn't they? And all these people I hear all the time, why did they shoot him in the chest? Why did they shoot him in the leg? Or why are they shooting at that car so many times? Why don't they just shoot out the tires? Have you ever tried to shoot at a moving target? Serious question. It's not as easy as it looks. Have you ever tried to shoot at someone who's coming at you when you have seconds to decide? That's why there's a reason they train you to shoot at center mass. It's the largest profiled part of your body. It's a lot easier to hit, especially when you've got adrenaline running through you. You've got, your hands are probably shaking at least a little bit. I don't care how many times you've practiced. If you've got to draw your weapon and you're not shooting at paper anymore, you're going to have a tremble. Because nobody wants to have to pull the trigger. But at some point, you have to ask yourself, is it going to be me or is it going to be him? Now, I'm not going to say that there's not at least maybe 3 to 5% of the time where somebody's crossing a line or something stupid happens. Like the cop recently here up in Tulsa who was 70-some-odd years old and accidentally grabbed his gun instead of his taser. But that's not his fault. He's 70-something years old. It's the fault of all the supervisors above him who ultimately kept passing him through, who kept having people try to falsify reports about his fitness. At some point, you have to tell people, okay, look, you've done a really great job, but at this point, if you're going to keep working, we're going to have to move you to some sort of paper-pushing capacity, or you can take your retirement and go home. But this guy had already retired and was a reserve officer, which technically meant he's a weekend cop, which is not a bad thing. I know people that are reserve cops. At one point, kind of one of the things that I did when I was doing security and everything else. You know, because once you're in law enforcement, it's hard to get out of law enforcement. Whether it's private sector, public sector, private security work, you always find ways to get your foot back in the door wherever you can find it, especially because a lot of us like to do it because when we're doing it, we make a difference. But I'm telling you, in this day and age, you can't make a difference anymore. You can't. And that's hard for me to admit, especially in towns like Baltimore. If I was a cop in Baltimore, I would move. I'm not even playing. I would just be like, you know what? I'm done. Here's my badge. Here's my gun. I'm going to Florida. I mean, seriously, why would you put up with that crap? I mean, you know, when I hung out with Jason the other night for a little bit when I was producing and kind of going back and forth with him, he kind of made up this name for Baltimore. I think he called it Baghdadamore. I think I may start using that. I hope he doesn't mind, because when you look at it, this place has gone crazy. It's in shambles. Government's a mess. The mayor says they're going to let folks tear shit up and then wants the government to pay them back for it later because they're like, hey, yeah, no big deal. We're just going to give these folks a little room, give them some time to vent, you know. And, you know, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. I talked about this on shows right after this happened. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt because, you know, if you listen to it, it sounds like she was actually trying to say, we're going to give these people room to protest. And instead, for some reason, she said destroy. So, you know, first I'm all like, hey, you know, benefit of the doubt, you know, talk a lot for a living. Sometimes you mean to say one thing, something else comes out, and you're like, crap. She never retracted it. She never backed down. And when she got called out on it, she got defensive. You know, as somebody who talks a lot for a living, if I say something that's completely stupid and I don't catch it until somebody calls me on it, the first thing I'm saying is, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Did I really just say that? Because that was not what I meant to say. Let me tell you what I actually meant to say. Not, well, you're taking my words all out of context and twisting them. That's the only reason why this would possibly sound the way it sounds now when you say it to me. No, we're not. Because we went back and listened to the footage over and over and over again to try to see if we could give you any ray of sunshine or a modicum of intelligence in the fact that you did not just say that you're going to give some folks some room to destroy your city. So, yeah, in case, you know, the fact that you have big companies secretly trying to kill you did not really give you the idea that we're kind of going in the wrong direction as far as this country is concerned, big shining example right here. Baltimore, a.k.a. Baghdadamore. Because not only did the mayor just go, yeah, let them tear stuff up. Now they're like, hey, federal government, we want you to pay us back for this because we can't afford to fix our mess. Wake up, America. We're all going to hell. All right, so at this point, I actually was talking so long I blew through the brakes. So we're going to have to take a break real quick. Been getting this angry look for a couple minutes now. So we're going to be right back, I promise. Okay, I told you, I'm taking it now. Quit looking at me like that. We'll be right back, folks. This is America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. Do hope you've enjoyed it so far this evening. We've got about 20 minutes left of the show because I did go a little bit long. We'll finish things up when we come right back.
The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get started again.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members or their families, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to keep them secure for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Join us at findwwp.org.
Hey, it's Cliff Davis from KLCI FM, the best radio station in the world. Coming soon. Stay tuned.
This is JD.
And this is Stacy.
Join us Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, for Game On. Remember,
lock up the children and the old folks.
Game On, the home of libertative conservatism.
Where no one is safe and no one is spared. Not even the hosts.
Oh, that was supposed to be a spin cycle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We love you anyway. Right round, baby.
Self-monitoring
right
Ebola radio strikes again.
Anyway.
Anybody see the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? For God's sake, I need an antidote. Just do your rant. Let's pop out of the segment.
Find us on Twitter at JD and Stacy.
You're listening to K98Talk.com. K98Talk.com, a leader in internet radio. So grab your seatbelts and take the ride of your life on K98Talk.com.
All right, folks, we're back. We're live. It's Friday evening, America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. We're down to about 17 minutes left. Where does the time go? All right, so since I hadn't really had a chance to talk about it too much yet, the last thing I really want to talk about is the Ambassador Bolton interview. Again, I do have to give my boy Grouchy a big pat on the back for this one. We're going to go ahead and cue this interview up now. And again, this is Ambassador John Bolton, who took the time to sit down with the both of us during the Southern Republican Leadership Conference. But since Grouchy was the one that did the legwork, and it was his, the one that he really, really wanted to land, that he managed to pull it off, he took front on this one, so you won't hear anything from me, because I let him run the whole thing. But I did that on purpose, and I'm hoping you understand why after you hear the interview. But here, in its entirety, is Grouchy's sit-down session with Ambassador John Bolton at this last weekend's Southern Republican Leadership Conference 2015.
We are live at Southern Republican Leadership Conference in Oklahoma City, and we just sat down with Ambassador John Bolton. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ambassador.
Glad to be with you.
Absolutely. I've actually got some very interesting questions from some viewers or listeners that would like to know a few things. We know you're not declared as a candidate, and we're good with that, so I'm going to steer away from candidate-style questions.
Okay.
But we have a great respect for you at K98 and myself personally. I think you're probably one of the more cogent and intelligent men that get good airtime on television, and I really appreciate hearing that. But first thing, I'm going to grab one out of the blue here, and my beautiful daughter would like to know what your thoughts are on the United Nations playing a role in a conservative small government America.
Well, I don't think the UN really should have any role in any domestic issues that we face, and I think one of the risks that we see with Obama in his remaining 20 months in office is that he will do what I think his ideology would like him to do, which is to depend more and more on the UN. You know, things like gun control, the death penalty, family issues. Americans have different views on these questions, but we can debate them. We'll decide within our constitutional framework what our policies are going to be. I think Obama would rather have those questions decided internationally, and many others, the environment, climate change, a whole range of these things. I think that's very dangerous for the United States, and I think it would be important in a Republican administration to make it clear that we like our Constitution the way it is. We don't need any advice from the United Nations. If others want to do it, that's up to them, but it's not for us.
Great. I like that stance, and that's kind of what I was hoping you would say, is that they shouldn't have a role. Next up, I have Colonel Obvious actually submitted me a question the other day about UN official Cristina Figueres actually emboldeningly saying that their climate change agenda is really designed to take capitalism down.
Yeah.
And
well,
move
look,
on that.
This is within the UN bureaucracy. I know very well a lot of people who have never lost the socialist point of view. They are anti-capitalist. Many of them are flatly anti-American. And to me, this is the big issue that I think Americans should be concerned about when we talk about global warming or climate change. I'm not a scientist. I don't know whether global warming is occurring. I don't know whether it's caused by human activity. I know the Earth's climate has changed over centuries and millennia. And it could well be that mankind's activities are having some effect on the climate, although we don't know exactly what it is. What bothers me is not that debate. I'll leave people who are more knowledgeable about that conduct that debate. What bothers me are the solutions that the climate change activists propose, because every one of them involves more interference and regulation by the government, either by our national government or through international organizations. And the thing that people should understand is that these activists would propose the same solutions even if the problem were global cooling. It's the latest excuse for greater government control over our lives. And I think where we should engage the debate is to say, if all this is true, and if global warming is a bad thing, and I think that's a debatable proposition, true, but even assuming that it's a bad thing, this is the wrong way to do anything about it.
Great. Okay. Now, from my own personal standpoint, we have a Congress that has, especially in the last few months since the midterm election, has time and again shown their distrust of President Obama on a myriad of topics. Why is it that you see Congress so anxious to give him the wide-ranging authority for fast trade?
Well, I think that the legislation that they're considering on the trade partnership for the Pacific and fast track needs to be scrutinized very closely. And obviously, I'm as worried about what Obama's long-term objectives are as anybody else. But the objective of fast track is actually to give Congress continuing insight into how trade negotiations go, so that they can affect the negotiations on an ongoing, in effect, continuous basis, rather than the alternative, which is Obama negotiates whatever deal he wants and then come back to the Congress and say, here it is, take it or leave it. I think that fast track, and people can argue about this, I think it actually gives Congress a greater oversight role, greater involvement, if they use it. In other words, if they take advantage of the authority. This is how it worked in previous administrations. I think under Obama, people have to have even closer scrutiny of what he's negotiating. But I think if Congress is prepared to do that, then we'll see an agreement that should benefit American consumers in particular by lowering trade barriers and bringing them goods and services at lower prices.
Well, we can certainly hope so.
But it requires, let's be clear, until this president leaves office, I think everything he does should be scrutinized very carefully together with us. So under Obama, of course, our China policy has been completely feckless. And I think what we see today in China under Xi Jinping is a movement back toward a more autocratic system, a more Maoist policy domestically and certainly internationally. And I think it requires a greater American involvement. That's what I think the right kind of TPP should bring. So that brings us back to the fast-track legislation. As TPP is being negotiated, this puts Congress right in the center of that. And if it looks like we're opening the door to China, that's the point for Congress to put its foot down.
Well, let's hope they do that. Okay. I read a piece lately that I considered, and I don't even know if you've seen it or not, but I considered it a hit piece on you. By a somewhat questionable media outlet.
It's the first time that's ever happened.
Exactly.
I can't believe that.
And this was actually, it happened before you had announced that you would not be running. They had called you a one-topic candidate. They said you were the Bomberan man. And I mean, I know you've certainly heard critics before. What kind of response would you have for somebody posting, first of all, something that ridiculous to, as whether you're a candidate or not a candidate, just to try to box somebody up like that and sum up everything you stand for in Let's Bomb Iran?
Well, I wrote in my memoir of my time at the State Department, Surrender is Not an Option, in that book, 2 chapters on our Iran policy during the Bush administration, both when I was Undersecretary for Arms Control and when I was at the UN, where I laid out what we could have done and what might have worked, going back now almost 15 years, to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons, because that was obviously my preference. We are where we are today, and it's very unfortunate because I think under the deal that Obama's negotiating, Iran will get nuclear weapons at a time of their choosing. Whether we have the deal or not, they're on the path to it. This deal, in my way, simply greases the skids. So we're in a very unpleasant position, but we're not there because we want to be there. We're there because of the president's policies over the past 6 years in particular. Had I run for office, let me say, I would have been a 360-degree candidate. I don't consider national security to be a single issue like, broccoli subsidies or something like that. I think it's an overwhelmingly important issue. It is the existential question. And I don't make any apologies for that.
Absolutely.
But I also believe that if to be taken seriously as a candidate for president, you have to be willing to address all the issues. I've been fortunate in recent years to be at the American Enterprise Institute in Washington, home to some of the country's best economists.
Yes, sir.
And I've absorbed a lot of that. I have strong views, mostly libertarian, on domestic economic policy. And I would have been happy to debate that. I will miss it. I'm not saying the decision not to run left me entirely happy, but I'm a realistic person, and I saw the reality, and I decided that was the thing to do.
So I know we're tight on time here, but what does the future hold for Ambassador John Bolton at this point?
Well, with the PAC and the Super PAC and the foundation that I've created, we spent in the 2014 election on behalf of House and Senate candidates, raised over $7.5 million. I had 25,000 contributors. I think I can triple that in this election cycle with a presidency at stake, with 24 out of the 34 Senate seats up being held by Republicans. The presidency is central, but the last thing we want to see is a Republican win the presidency and lose control of the Senate to put Chuck Schumer in as the majority leader. So we've got a lot of work to do. This is an incredibly important election. I want to move all the Republican candidates to talk more about national security. I am ready for Hillary. I'm ready to talk about her right now.
Absolutely.
And through the PAC and the Super PAC and the foundation, each in their appropriate way, that's what I'll be doing.
Fantastic. And lastly, as we sum up here, Mr. Ambassador, let me please thank you for your service to this country, both in the Corps and also militarily, your service. Having done 10 years myself and been to the Gulf, I know what we all have seen and done, and thank you so much for everything you've done for us.
Well, I appreciate your kind words. Look, it's an honor to serve the country, and it's something we should all do.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador John Bolton, thank you very much for stopping by.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, all kidding aside, that really was a great interview. And for those of you who don't know Grouchy yet, you can catch his show every Wednesday night. It comes on right after mine, so it'll be on at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. And he is, as he said about Ambassador Bolton, one of the most cogent men that he's seen on TV. Grouchy is one of the more cerebral and cogent people that I've met. He really is extremely intelligent, and he puts a lot of research and time into his show. So it really is going to be a good one for you to check out, and we're glad we have him here on K98 Talk. He was actually one of the first guests we got. I had been courting him for months, followed him ever since he was on Facebook. That's how we met. And he kept broaching the idea of a show, and patiently I just kept waiting. And then, one day I got the call, and we've been working together ever since. And I have enjoyed every second of it. And he really is another and I know people throw this word around a lot, and it's not one you'll hear me use very much. But he is a former serviceman, so he has done his part for, as some people like to put it, king and country. But in my mind, he is still a patriot. He gets up every day, much like the rest of you, and sees the things that are going on in our country, and realizes that this is not the world that he grew up in. This is not the nation that he grew up in. And I myself find the same thing every day. I know I say this a lot, but every day I feel like every day I get up and we've taken one more step towards a world that I don't recognize, a world that I don't necessarily want our country to be a part of. As the show comes to a close, I'm going to do the same thing I typically try to do almost every show if I can remember. Sometimes I get a little worked up and I forget. But if you, like those of us here on K98 Talk, feel like things are just not going in the direction they need to go in, whether you're liberal, conservative, independent, libertarian, we don't care. We have hosts of all stripes here. You'll even find a few liberals here and there. Can't find as many of them as I originally wanted, because I did want to be able to bring you all aspects and let you make the decision. But we do have a couple. You'll find a couple of shows here and there where we vehemently disagree with each other. One of those would be Finding Common Ground, which is on every Saturday morning. So I am one of the routine co-hosts for that. So I'll be back with you tomorrow morning at 9 Central. But if you, like us, are looking around and not recognizing the country that you're in now, it's time to do something. Everybody always says, well, I can't do anything. Look, every single one of us have talents. It's up to you to decide what you're going to use those talents for. I'm not saying you got to devote 80 hours a week to it. I'm not saying you got to quit your day job. I'm saying find a way to get involved. It's as easy as finding a candidate that you can support and starting to make phone calls for them. Reach out to a candidate. Tell their staff you want to help. Do something. Put down the remote. Get off the couch and get involved. Nobody's asking you for the kind of commitment that some of us are making. I mean, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I do about 40 to 50 hours a week on top of my regular stuff to make this run. And I don't say that to brag. I say that because I understand not everybody can do that. There are times when I wonder how the heck I've managed to pull it off. And lately, it's been a little harder than others, but that was partly because we were getting ready for the conference. But I say all this because, again, nobody's asking you to devote the hours of a full-time job. If you can do that, great. But do something. Each and every one of you have a talent. You were endowed with talents when you were born. So find a way to use them. If you feel like the rest of us, and you feel like this country is slipping away from the people that understand what this country was meant to be, and it's no longer standing as the bright, shining beacon that it once was, then it's time for you to do something. Because at this point, folks, America is coming off the rails. She's not there yet, but she's almost there. And if we don't do something soon, eventually she will be off the rails, and there will be absolutely nothing we can do about it. With that being said, one last time, find a way to get involved, put down the remote, get off your couch, stop keeping up with the Kardashians, and find a way to make a difference. Good night, God bless. I'm Rick Robinson, host of America Off the Rails. I will be back with you tomorrow.
Screw you guys. I'm going home. Later.
Game over, man. It's game over.